I got drawn in or sort of into the subject about what happens after the fire. I just want to share some experience with you.
I learn so much by talking to other people that I meet, and I make really long-standing connections.
Pouring water onto an EV in thermal runaway is like pouring water onto the roof of your house when your kitchen's on fire. Thank you, gentlemen.
The invitation of being here. I'm going to talk about a fire we had in a high-rise building in Brussels, an old high-rise building. Belgium has known 2 staircases in high-rise buildings since like the early 70s, but this is a building from before. And the title of the presentation is Murphy Visits Anderlecht. You all know Murphy, and during this day, during this event, plenty of things went the wrong way. Maybe quickly introduce myself. So I've been a firefighter for 22 years, both as a career or as a volunteer firefighter. So I work in the place where I live as a volunteer. A sergeant could be like a crew commander here, and I'm a major, which is the 2nd highest rank in the Belgian fire service in Brussels, where I'm chief of training and I'm responsible for one of the 4 platoons. I'm also partly a bit of an academic. I work partly as a professor at Ghent University, and I'm also part of this group, which is a bunch of firefighters and scientists which meets once a year somewhere around the world to gather and exchange information. I've written a couple of books. I've written a number of articles, mainly articles for the fire service staff. This is the address of my website, and if you click on that, you can go to the articles page and find plenty of things you can download for the firefighters in the room, and you can use them to do training or such. Now, enough about me. Brussels, about 1,000 high-rise buildings. In Belgium, high-rise is defined as over 25 meters. So below that, we typically have 1 staircase, and above we have 2. We have a water riser, which is wet all the time. We don't have dry risers anymore. So we have a quite good standard in Belgium when it comes to fighting fires in high-rise buildings. That is, in buildings that have been built after 1972. In Brussels, we still have plenty of buildings who have been built before 72, and this, of course, is such a case. So to go quickly through the presentation, we'll talk about where the fire happened, what tactics we intended to use and which ones we end up using, the problems we have, and some lessons we've learned. So, yeah, Brussels is in Belgium, the other side of the channel. So this is Brussels, capital of Europe. I know you guys are no longer in the UK, in Europe, but still. So pretty densely populated, about 1.2 million, population density of about 7,000 people per square kilometer. I don't know how that is in miles, but it's pretty packed. Anderlecht is this area. It's a part of Brussels which has richer areas, but also areas where there is more economically deprived people, and fire discriminates. There is more fires in economically deprived zones, and this was also the case. Now this is a close-up. This is the building where the fire took place. Old building means little fire prevention, only 1 staircase, and then in this case a spiral staircase. Which makes it even harder to use, because then it's really hard to cross. If people are going down and people are going up, there's a problem there. In the building there was no riser, so we had to solve that by deploying our own mobile riser, but that came later in the intervention. Also in Belgium we have a requirement, and I think it's the same in the UK, to indicate the number of the floor. Yeah, it's comparable to what you see here. We have white letters, white numbers on a green background, and they're supposed to be like this size. That wasn't the case there as well, and as we will see, each of these elements had an impact on the intervention. Now, I told you the building where the fire took place is here, and this is the closest fire station. Now, close is good, but too close is annoying because it means you don't get enough time to just equip yourselves, and you arrive more stressed, still putting on gear. That's not the best way to start an intervention. So, in Brussels, we dispatch to every confirmed house or apartment fire 2 engines, 2 ladder trucks, a command car with a senior officer, an ambulance, and there is a medical crew dispatched from a hospital with a doctor which comes on site. If it's a confirmed high-rise building fire, we will dispatch a 3rd engine and a 2nd senior officer. Now, Anderlecht fire station, they have 2 engines and 1 ladder truck. The idea is a ladder truck and an engine for a fire and maybe another engine for something else happening at the same time. Now, Murphy passes here for the first time. At the moment they call this fire in, Anderlecht fire station is already responding to another fire. So there's only 1 engine left and no ladder truck. The military hospital in Brussels sent us a medical crew, and all the other resources came from headquarters. So 2 extra engines, 2 ladder trucks, 2 command cars and an ambulance. First engine arrives on scene. They realize there's a fire on the 11th floor. At the moment they are on scene, window breaks on the 11th floor, glass drops down, important risks. It's nice to have a helmet, but if glass is falling from the 11th floor, helmets aren't really useful. So we got lucky there. Also, when the window is no longer there, now the fire has sufficient ventilation, and quite quickly there is flashover and they have a fully developed fire. The fire you saw in the first picture, but our guys don't have that image. They can't see the fire, they have to look up and they see something, but they don't have that information. A very experienced crew commander who realizes we will need more resources here, and he asks dispatch, I need a 3rd engine. Now a 3rd engine is already rolling, but also a good guy in dispatching who realizes, if he asks more resources, this is going to be nasty, and he dispatches us a 4th engine, which will become very handy later in the intervention. So if I take you through the tactics we wanted to apply, so what the 1st engine of Anderlecht was planning to do is simple: go into the building, find the water riser, go up, connect to it because it's always wet, and attack the fire. And when they did, they realized there is no water riser here, and so we have to apply a tactic that we call a mobile riser. It's what you saw in the picture. We take a hose line up and then we fill it. It just takes time. In the meantime, there was also evacuation being done, search and rescue by headquarters. A traditional attack, I will come back to that later in the intervention. We try to deploy a water riser on the outside of the building on the 2nd ladder truck just to get water into the building. And then there was also ventilationing happening. So back to the arrival of that 1st crew. This is the fire at that moment in time. It's fully developed. There's no ladder with them because the ladder was responding to another fire, so they can't do an exterior attack. It's just too high. They want to do an interior attack and they realize, no water. They have to switch tactics and start deploying a line inside. So actually with a basket we will go up and a hose will leave the basket the higher we go. And when everything is in place, a divider is going at the end of it and it's being charged. To their surprise, when they were going up, they encountered smoke. And generally, smoke is going up, not going down if there's a fire. Smoke is hot, hot air rises like a hot air balloon. So they encountered elderly people trying to descend. People were being caught up by smoke coming down, people needing assistance. So instead of continuing deploying their hose line, they had to put the basket to the side and started rescuing these people who needed help. And going up, going down, going up, going down. It's a bit stressy, asking in the background, where does this smoke come from? they got a bit disorientated, in the sense they knew we are in the staircase, but they didn't know anymore at which floor are we. We arrived with headquarters. And we dispatch one engine to go up to do search and rescue. At this point in time, we don't know there is such a problem in the staircase. The guys we sent up to do search and rescue, they will end up by doing the interior attack. So the whole fire floor was smoke locked, the floors below were smoke locked. Crews ended up at the door of the fire floor, but actually in their mind, they were thinking they were waiting on some kind of a bridgehead on the floor -1. They messed up. They ended up in zero visibility, which is not what you would expect. You would expect the fire floor to be smoke locked and the floors above, not the floor below. And it takes time and it takes time and nothing happens. There is lots of delays. This is a couple of years back. I'm not in charge of the platoon. I'm the number 2 guy. So my boss says, go up, go have a look what's going on over there. And I go up, and for me it's easy. I just have to go up and count the floors. I don't have to go up and down, up and down. And I arrive at them and I say, what's the problem? Yeah, we don't have water. Yeah, I know, but why aren't you taking a peek to see what's happening? Why, it's the floor above. No, it's not. It's here. So I asked my colleague, how are the conditions outside? And he says, well, it's still pretty much fully developed. So I asked the ladder truck to do an exterior attack and knock it down and tell me when that happened. This is the floor plan of that environment. So here is the spiral staircase, which is a very small hall, and this gives way to an apartment. There's one here, there's one there, and this is the apartment which was on fire with only one bedroom burning. But at this point in time, we are here in the staircase waiting. The ladder truck knocked down this fire. My colleague, my boss, confirmed it's knocked down, and then I ordered my guys, we're going in. We don't have any water. I don't care. I want to see how this is evolving. Is this also on fire? Is the fire spreading? So we forced the door, we went in, and in this room there were flames maybe this high. We didn't have any water, so we couldn't do anything about it, but at least we could open the windows and start evacuating smoke and limiting the fire to this enclosure. The door was burnt away, so we were a bit stuck there. The only reason why we could remain there is because I had a crew in the basket of the ladder truck. So actually they're like one floor below. It doesn't, from this angle, it doesn't represent reality very well. So they're one floor, the basket is one floor below the window which was gone. And so throughout the incident, each time the fire progressed towards flashover, I ordered them to hit it again. And it took like 20-25 minutes to sort the mess out and get us water to extinguish the fire. So what happened in the meantime, my boss ordered the second ladder truck to go along the back and start deploying a line to the 9th floor, break the window and have water into the building that way. Also that took time, it took that much time that in the end it wasn't necessary anymore. What helped us was the third arrived engine got tasked with clear the staircase from smoke, do ventilation. So they went up, made an opening at the top floor, started the fan and started clearing out smoke. And then a shout out to my German colleague Michael Reich, who invented the smoke stopper. So the combination of a smoke stopper which blocks the door of the fire with an exhaust at the top of the staircase and a fan, and quite quickly we now have a staircase with visibility. And now we can work, because if we want to do stuff which is designed to be done in perfect visibility, then we find out that it doesn't work when there is suddenly zero visibility. So the problems we had is a myriad of problems. Of course, there's the main problem, there's a fully developed fire, and that's not really handy, but it's also an old high-rise building with a single staircase. We are used to double staircases, one for fire attack, one for people evacuating, as you explained in the first lecture. For us, that's the standard. That's what we have most of the time. The spiral stairs didn't help. Having no water to fight the fire is really annoying. The numbers on the floors, they disoriented the people. There wasn't a ladder truck available from the start, otherwise we could have knocked it down from the get-go, which we couldn't do. We talked about stack effect, reverse stack effect. This was a reverse stack effect fire. This was actually what was causing the smoke coming down from the staircase, which is quite rare. I've been 20 years in Brussels. I've only had 2 fires with reverse stack effect. The consequence is that firefighters don't realize what's happening. They realize this smoke, this is not right, but they don't understand why. There were lots of occupants in distress, and also because of all the mess, there was too much communications. I told you about the numbers on the floors. This is what the numbers looked like. Yeah, if it's smoke, you can't read this. And normally if you have the big number, at each floor you can quickly take a peek to know I'm on the 9th floor, I'm on the 8th floor, and you can orientate yourself. What you see here at the bottom is the end of the water riser. So they have to pull this, in theory, to 2 floors below the fire, connect the divider, and then connect the attack hoses. But in our procedure, our SOP, the idea is that this is in perfect visibility, because if there's a fire on the 11th floor, there might be some smoke on the 10th, but there won't be smoke on the 9th. If you have reverse stack effect, that is no longer true. That assumption is no longer valid. Yeah? And to quote Under Siege 2 movie from the 90s, the assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups. So we made the assumption when we designed that procedure that will never be a problem, 2 floors below the fire, but here it turned out to be, and you can imagine if you have to drag the hose up in 0 visibility and then try to connect this and connect the 2 hoses, if you have never trained that in 0 visibility, it doesn't work that way. So in reverse stack effect, I suppose most of you know how it works, but in reverse stack effect, there is a dominant airflow going down in the staircase. So if smoke is being leaked into the staircase, it is taken down by the reverse stack effect. So some consequences of that is the people who self-evacuate, if they're below the fire, normally they end up in a perfectly clear staircase and they can just walk down. Here they ended up in smoke. There were reports of people being caught up by the smoke coming down, especially elderly people. Also in the presentation of the colleague at the beginning, people who are not so mobile, they end up in trouble. They need assistance, but if you task firefighters to do that, the remainder of the work is delayed. At some point we even had smoke on the ground floor. So this is a picture from, again, that same 9th floor, which gives you an indication. This is the lobby, and here you can distinguish the helmet of a firefighter in the staircase. So 2 floors below the fire, 0 visibility in the staircase. The way we operate in Belgium, we have SCBA's with our mask packed in plastic, and we will only take the plastic off when we need to use them. We don't have a BA entry control officer, we don't do that in Belgium. So typically we would go to the 9th floor, maybe the 10th, and then take our plastics off. And the place where you see the plastic, that's where they started using their BA. In this case, we found the plastic 5 floors below the fire, which means that they go on air earlier, they start using air earlier, which means that you have a shorter operation. So that already, it all contributed to a negative outcome. So reverse stack effect is caused by the fact that it's hotter outside than it's inside, whereas in winter it's just the other way around. How did that happen in such an old building? Well, there was a heat wave in Brussels. It was 40 degrees centigrade that day, which means that at the moment that firefighters start, they're already tired, they're dehydrated, and then they are confronted with such a difficult intervention. And in the future, that will happen more and more, especially in these older buildings where there is not a lot of fire prevention measures in place. So heat wave means heat stress for firefighters, but also a higher probability to have reverse stack effect. Now to go to the lessons learned of this fire, We have our mobile riser. It's quite new tactic. We only have it like 8 or 9 years in Brussels. And the idea was to deploy it in the smoke-free part of the staircase. And the idea was it's a separate assignment. It's like in soccer. Somebody will bring the ball very close to the goal of the adversary, and then somebody else will score. One crew will bring up the riser, and another crew will connect to it and do fire attack. Here it got executed in zero visibility, and the crew who deployed it also wanted to do fire attack. By then they were already completely exhausted. So we had to stress it's a separate assignment, and if you encounter smoke, stop and make the connections a couple of floors lower. The thermal imaging camera was also crucial. The guys at floor -1 in their minds, if they would have used the thermal imaging camera and just opened the door, they would have seen we are on the fire floor, we are not on the floor below the fire. They would have seen the ceiling jets and such. ICS in Belgium, we're not so very strong when it comes to instant command system. We now have a system implemented where if there's a high-rise fire, one crew, which in Belgium is 6 guys, we have 6 guys on a fire engine and not 4, as I think is the case in UK and maybe lots of other countries. They have to stay together and do the assignment, and then the crew commander has to come to the senior officer to report in person, not over the radio, because radio communication is not so easy. And so we send the senior officer up from the get-go to the bridgehead with his driver and a whiteboard to do all these management of all the actions. So for me, that was a bit of a sad day. I was really frustrated because in the past 15 years we spent a lot in training and improving, and yeah, it still ended up as such a shit show. And then one of the crew commanders came to me and said, well, there's 2 ways of looking at this. You can look at everything that has gone wrong, but if we would have had this 5 to 10 years ago, we didn't have transitional attack. We didn't have the mobile riser system, and teams were competing against themselves. So different stations, they were not collaborating very well. Everybody wanted to extinguish the fire. It's my fire, you know? And all that changed. And he said, it's thanks to all these changes that even with all the problems we encounter today, this became a success because nobody died, nobody got hurt in a way, no firefighter got hurt. It was tough, but we managed to do it, and we drew some lessons from it. So in summary, our mobile riser system must be done in a smoke-free environment, and if the environment isn't smoke-free, we should adapt. Our guys should be better at TIC training, and we implemented a system regarding instant command and control to be better at managing these difficult and complex interventions. I have put my email and my website in the presentation, so if you have comments or questions and there's no time now, feel free to send me an email. Thank you.